where it was the last house before this field where the barricade was. They had us get out, show our identification. While we were out, I noticed on the left-hand side of the building the interpreter's body. He had been shot in the head. There was talk back and forth for about 3 minutes, and finally they told us we could leave. We got back into the van. The driver asked if we wanted to take Bill's body back to the hotel. Said we did, so he and I backed up, put Bill's body in the van, came back here to the hotel.
Después de unos
The Guardia soldier had shot Bill.
No, not at all. Could not tell.
Can you describe him at all? Was there anything missing?
What type of uniform did he wear?
It was just a regular guard uniform. It looked like fatigues. I couldn't say anything about it. No, the cameraman believes he did. There was a shot prior to the one when they shot Bill. He was off to the side, so he really wasn't in our line of sight.
What did they say to you when they spoke to you afterwards?
Well, of course, it was in Spanish, so we couldn't understand it. There seemed to be no great concern about what they did to Bill. It was just that the interpreter, as far as they were concerned, wasn't an interpreter. They felt he was a Sandinista or something. And that was
Do you have
the
the
gist
name
of
of
it.
the interpreter?
No, I don't.
Juan Francisco.
Pardon me,
Where was Bill's equipment?
it was in the van. He had it in the van. All Bill had with him at the time was a white flag.
He was carrying a white flag?
He was carrying a white flag, hands raised above his head.
How far ahead of you was he at the time?
About 15 yards, and then say the guard was another 15 yards beyond Bill. Bill was about center position.
How long had he been talking to the guard up until the point that he was shot? Sorry, some of this is repetitive.
Yeah, a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes at the most.
You were not able to hear what was said. If Bill actually spoke, did you tell that he was a foreigner and they thought?
No, he was obviously talking. I mean, you could see his lips moving and all, but I couldn't hear what was said.
Did Bill speak any Spanish?
No, not at all. We were counting on the interpreter for that.
When you walked ahead after they had initially said you shouldn't, did you feel assured at that point that you had to?
We weren't walking. We were still in the van. We were in the van. Bill was the one doing the walking. He didn't want to approach in a group or in the van. He had a bad experience the other day with being shot at and felt that it was safer this way. They could see that he had no arms, nothing, and he wasn't intending on doing anything other than speaking with them.
You know enough Spanish at least to say periodista?
I'm sure he did. He had his card out at the time, his press card.
Held in his hand?
Yeah, it was raised above his head, but he had it.
Presidential press card.
Yes, yes, the one we just recently issued. Yes.
Sorry, Jim, to make you repeat something. Had the interpreter moved off
He
ahead
was
of him?
he was ahead of him several feet, and then
So the
the
two
guard
went
kind
off
of
together?
initially, then the guard moved him off to one side.
What was the area like? Describe that.
It looked like the end of a street. It's a wide street. There was one other man talking to us on it who lived there, obviously a resident.
Their homes around or
Yes, well, the shacks and all.
neighborhood?
Yeah.
Mud Street?
Yes.
Could you tell us your name? I'm sorry.
Jim Cefalo. That's Cefalo. ALO.
EFAO.
That's right.
And who are they?
Yeah, with the text.
What was the,
A lot of coverage for ABC in Iran.
And Lebanon,
Well, that's EPW.
Yeah, ARC.
Lebanon also.
you don't have any part of the incident on tape?
I don't know.
So what are your feelings at this time, particularly with regard to your feelings toward the government or the guard?
No, the thing I was just reflecting on was that we've been getting messages, very strong messages from New York that that they felt that they had seen enough fighting on the air and wanted more human interest stories to not hang out your life unnecessarily anymore. Not that we had been doing it unnecessarily anyway, but to be careful. So we were all making a very special effort to be careful, Bill included. And there's just a very tragic irony here, that's all.
Following those shooting, the driver and
Members of the press, I have made this written statement, and I ask you, as President of Nicaragua and as Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces of this country, to accept my most deep condolences on the sad and tragic event that resulted in the loss of the lives of an American newspaper, Bill Stewart, and his Nicaraguan interpreter, Juan Francisco Espinosa. I have already ordered a full investigation of this painful and useless and hateful incident, and I can assure you that the individual or individuals responsible for it, either by action or omission, will receive the full weight of the law. The Army has already formed a military court of investigation that will hear of this incident with the objective of bringing those responsible before a court-martial. This unforgivable and isolated happening has moved me and everyone very deeply, as it does not belong to the framework of my government policy on information and relations with the press, which has been one of continuous and friendly relations with you all. I have been advised that a film of this tragic incident has already been exhibited in the United States and perhaps the rest of the world. Therefore, I ask those companions of Bill Stewart to supply a copy of this tape to the military authorities, as well as their sworn statement and full cooperation to do justice. I also want to give my deepest sympathy to the companions who were with Bill Stewart during the incident. It is with deep regret that as open as the way we have dealt in the past. I assure you that we are going to investigate. I'm open for questions.
Mr. President, in protest of the killing of this newsman, and I would like your indulgence to hear Mr. Ken Lukoff of ABC say a few words.
Mr. President, we, the undersigned members of the International Press Corps, wish to protest in the strongest possible terms the execution today by the National Guard of Bill Stewart, my colleague ABC correspondent, and his Nicaraguan interpreter, Juan Espinosa. Attached, you have a statement made by my ABC soundman, Mr. Jim Cheffela, Sandinista sharpshooter. We also wish to protest the inflammatory media campaign in Novedades and on Radio Nacional, projecting us as, quote, part of the vast communist propaganda network. This is a blatant lie, Mr. President. It foments hostility towards us, makes our work even more generous than it already is. Even though Nicaragua is under a state of siege, your government has issued us formal press credentials. Mr. Stewart was carrying such a card when he was shot. We insist that the Nicaraguan government fully honor its obligations implicit in our official accreditation. We also demand an explanation of the execution.
Y de la Radio Nacional se nos presenta como parte de la vasta red de propaganda comunista. Esta es una abierta mentira que debe ser rectificada. Alienta la hostilidad.
In the obligation to receive this protest from you in representation of you and your colleagues. And also, I am in the obligation to ask you to understand that I really feel for the death of Bill Stewart, and that I want to make assure to you again that this is an isolated incident which I never wanted it to happen in Nicaragua. Sending off the remains of Mr. Stewart to his family. The only answer I can give you is that you have to believe in my good faith and the good faith of the Nicaraguan people.